What's up, guys? Blaine Duncan here from Halloween Lives, the podcast of Michael Myers. Welcome to episode number 54 of this podcast, of this YouTube series, whatever you want to call it. I'm joined week after week by my brother, Austin. What's up, dude? Welcome to episode number 54.
Feels good, man. We've had a nice bounce into this new year with a couple really fun episodes. This is going to be no different. There's still so many things coming down the pipeline in 2024 that we're super excited about. And I think we're ready to announce kind of our first real kickoff into the new year, the first big Halloween Lives event of the year that we hope you guys can all be a part of. Blaine, would you do the honors? Would you tell the people the good news?
So we have for the last month or two, we've been getting messages it seems like almost every week. Hey, when are you guys doing another live show? When are you going to do another live show? Well, we're podcast hosts of the people. We give the people what they want, and we are going to do next Friday. It's going to be so next Friday, February 2nd, we're doing another live show. It's going to be live 55. Only there's a slight catch with this live episode. It's going to be a little bit different than what we've done in the past. In the past, we've sort of opened up the experience for everybody to come on the show. We have people join us, fans of the show, other previous guests that we've had. We're going to change things up a little bit here. We're going to see, we're going to play, I don't want to call it a game, but it is sort of a game. If you've ever watched the YouTube series, the YouTube show, Hot Ones, where two individuals sit down, they face off at each other, and they eat the hottest freaking chicken wings that you can possibly find, or chicken wings with the hottest sauces that you can possibly find. That's what we're going to be doing, but there's a catch. We're going to be answering your questions and questions that you have for us. These could be questions. These could be personal questions, especially about Austin's, his nightlife. You could ask him questions about that, or if you want to ask us questions about the Halloween franchise, whatever it might be, we're going to be answering your questions while eating the hottest freaking wings that we can possibly find, or the hottest sauces that we can possibly find. So if you haven't seen previous episodes of Hot Ones, go check it out, because that's exactly what we're going to be doing. We are going to be in misery, in pain. We're going to be crying. We're going to be laughing, trying not to, throw up, whatever it might be. So it's going to be a little bit different. We are also going to have a guest host for that episode, because Austin and I kind of figured we're going to get to a certain point where our noses are going to be running. We're going to be coughing, hacking, trying to choke down these wings, answer these questions that you guys have. Might be a good idea to bring another guest host on for the night. So that's what we're going to be doing. So that's next Friday, February 2nd, 7 p.m. Central Standard Time, 8 p.m. Eastern. If you guys want to tune in, it's going to be a lot of fun. And we might have to place a little bet, to see who can go further, right? I think we're going to try to shoot for 12 different sauces, a dozen wings, 12 different sauces, a different sauce for every wing. And might have to place a little bet who's going to go further. Or maybe the fine folks at home who are listening, they might be able to place that bet. Who do you think is going to win, Austin or myself? We'll have to see.
I think even if I don't want to, I'm gonna have to go all the way. It'll be interesting to see when the milk gets brought out or anything like that. I like, for the most part, spicy food. That's gonna come back to bite me literally in a week. But yeah, no, full discretion, completely doing what Hot Ones does. But I don't know, it's so much fun, and I definitely think it'll be. I've never seen you uncomfortable from food. I don't think you've ever seen me burning up hot. I don't know. We grew up spicy boys. I think we'll be able to do well, but time will tell.
It's going to be a lot of fun. Probably won't be fun next Saturday morning, February 3rd. That morning is going to suck. But hey, we're doing it for you guys. So please join us for Live 55. Watch Austin and I put ourselves through absolute hell, pain, and misery just to entertain you fine people at home. It's going to be a lot of fun. We'll make sure that obviously we get all that information posted out on our Instagram page, and you'll be able to watch that live on YouTube by going to the Halloween Lives podcast YouTube channel and checking that out. But going to be a lot of fun. Looking forward to it already. But let's not forget that we're here right now at episode 54. We can't jump over episode 54 because this is going to be a fun episode. You and I have what I might call a love-hate relationship with the David Gordon Green trilogy. It's something that we've talked a whole hell of a lot about on this show, on this channel. And we kind of decided, you know what, tonight, let's lay it out on the table. Let's talk about that love-hate relationship. Let's talk about the things that we really love, and let's talk about the things that we absolutely hate about this trilogy. And we want to hear from you guys. What do you guys love? What do you guys hate? We know that just reading through comments, talking with people who listen to this show, talking with people out at H45, it's like a roller coaster of who is really who loves this thing and who hates it. And going down the line, we've heard people, from one end of the spectrum to the other, where they hate the entire thing, they love all three films, to somewhere where we kind of sit, where I'll speak for you, Austin, that you and I, we like 2/3 of the films, right? We like 2 out of 3. There is one, obviously, talking specifically about Halloween Kills. We could take it or leave it, but it's a Halloween film, so we love it in that sense. But we're going to dive into that tonight. We're going to talk about our love-hate relationship with the David Gordon Green trilogy. And Austin, why don't you kick it off? Let's get this thing going. I want to hear, number one, your first reason why you hate this trilogy, or what you might hate about the trilogy, whatever it might be.
Totally. And just to preface, I think this is a wonderful time to talk about what went right, what went wrong, as we gear ourselves up for the next adventure of whatever Halloween franchise holds for us in the coming years. For me, man, I'm going to start off extremely petty. Now, I do promise my picks get more in-depth than this as time goes on. But the number one thing I hate about this trilogy are the names of these movies, man.
Oh, really? Okay.
Tell
me more.
I think there's a couple different ways we could have gone here. If you want to do the kills, ends, verb ending with S, let's start it off with something other than Halloween. Because at this point, we have 3 movies with the title Halloween. In the next 10 years, we will probably have 4 movies with the name Halloween. I'm assuming they're going to remake this at some point in the next decade. And it's going to get really confusing when you're on Amazon Prime looking for the right Halloween movie. You spend $3.99 and all of a sudden you're watching Rob Zombie hillbillies screaming at each other, swearing at each other, being weirdly incestuous. And you're trying to watch Jamie Lee Curtis hitting the bottle. It's just a big problem for me when talking about these movies, especially because you and I talk about these movies every single week. The fact that I have to go Halloween 2018 or H18, not so much of a big problem when it comes to kills and ends, but man, name the first one Returns. On top of that, what is Halloween Kills as the name of a movie? I remember when that first got released, you and I were kind of like, I don't know how I feel about the name on that one, but Halloween Ends, I think, is a great name for a movie, especially giving Kills. But to kind of wrap everything up in a bow with a similar naming pattern for all 3 movies would have been huge for me. I know that's super nitpicky, but I wanted to start off kind of light, ease ourselves into the eventual hatred.
So when you said names, I thought at first you were going to be talking about like character names. So you're talking like the title of the film. So number one, dude, this never was on my radar to do this, but I agree with everything that you just said here. The fact that I have to call Halloween 78, and I can't just call it Halloween really it sucks, because even if I was talking about Rob Zombie's Halloween, I would call it Rob Zombie's Halloween. I would call it the Halloween remake, whatever it might be. But now, we have to say Halloween 78, Rob Zombie's Halloween, and then Halloween 2018. It sucks that we have to do that. Agree wholeheartedly. They should have given Halloween 2018 some sort of Halloween Returns, like you said, right? There should have been some sort of name that went along with the word Halloween. And I still remember, I don't remember what website it was, but hearing when they kind of broke, I think it was like breaking news that they were, Halloween 2018 was a success. They said, hey, we're going to continue this thing on as a trilogy. And they released these logos for Halloween Kills and Halloween Ends. And I think there was even like a jacket or something, like somebody had a jacket on in the back that said like Halloween Kills or some shit. And I remember thinking at that time, those names suck. Like really Halloween. Like it was just weird to me. And I can live maybe with Ends, still not a favorite. Still, as far as the name goes, I'm not big necessarily on that. But yeah, dude, I totally wholeheartedly agree with what you just said. Like I said, didn't actually end up on my list of things that I hate about the David Gordon Green trilogy, but I agree with you 100% that they could have done a better job with the names, especially the 2018 film. Very, very good choice, and not petty at all. I don't think. I think that's really good. I'm going to hit you with my first thing that I hate about the David Gordon Green trilogy. As much as I loved 95% of the casting for these films, there were some serious misses. Omar Dorsey, who played Sheriff Barker in all three films, sucked. Terrible casting. Didn't like him. Toby Huss, who played Ray, Allison's dad, terrible casting. Don't know what they were thinking. And sadly, Anthony Michael Hall, who played Tommy Wallace in Halloween Kills. Dude, okay, so with the casting, and I'm going to get to casting later, more casting later. This trio of people, I can't stand them. And here's the thing, Michael Anthony Hall sounds like he's an awesome dude. Like when we were out at age 45 and he was there and people who met him, and then when he was up on stage, when we went to the Halloween trilogy panel, everybody was talking about what a nice dude he was, how cool he was. Like I remember as he was sitting in his chair at the panel and somebody came in late and he gave up his chair. He gave his chair up to whoever it was. I don't remember who it was that came in. Sounds like he's an awesome dude. Terrible casting for Halloween Kills. Did not like the character, how he portrayed that character. Just sort of this. Well, it starts off, as we've talked about, it starts off with the bar scene at the opening of the film, essentially, when he starts telling that story about Michael Myers and the boogeyman. It was just so overacted. And the thing is he is a good actor. Like he's obviously been in a lot of films. He's a really good actor. But I will never, ever, ever think of Tommy Wallace as Michael Anthony Hall. I will never do that. I don't even want to Paul Rudd, who is an absolute favorite actor of mine. I love him as just a human being and as an actor, because I think he's also a really good dude. He will always be, in my mind, more of a Tommy Wallace than Michael Anthony Hall. And it's just really unfortunate because in my mind, that was a huge swing and a miss. Sheriff Barker made it into all three films. Terrible casting. Didn't understand it. Why is he wearing a freaking cowboy hat? Doesn't make any sense whatsoever. And then, of course, you have Ray, and his first line really that he has in the film, or one of his opening lines that he has in the film, is, "Oh, I got peanut butter on my penis." What the fuck? Who wrote okay, David Gordon Green, Danny McBride, I get it, right? You got Eastbound and Down. You guys are comedic writers. Don't put that in a Halloween film. There was good comedy, small snippets of comedy, introduced into every one of these films in some capacity. Maybe not so much in Kills, because that was a pretty serious one, but for sure in 2018, and then in Ends, there was some comedic relief throughout those two films at certain points. You don't need to say shit like that. Nobody wants that in a Halloween film. But so not only did I not like that writing for that specific line, but just some of those characters, poorly cast. Don't know what they're doing. Don't know if somebody owed Michael Anthony Hall a favor. I don't know, but I didn't like it. What do you think?
I agree. Obviously, I've spoke a lot about my dislike for Tommy Doyle's character in Halloween Kills. It's not for me. And you bring up a really good point there, because I don't know how much of that falls on the acting, which I do believe that character was extremely overacted.
Right.
And how much falls on the writing. But yeah, completely agree. The sheriff obviously gains about 30 pounds in between, like 10 p.m. on Halloween night, and then like a little later on Halloween Kills. I remember turning to you in the movie theater, and we were like, "Damn, what happened to him?"
Yeah, because he's like sitting at the hospital. He's like leaned up again, or he's like sitting on something, and they show him, and it's like, oh shit, he put on some pounds between 2018 and Kills. Damn.
Yeah. And then Allison's dad, just such like a useless character and like not good enough to be comic relief. Again, that might fall onto the writing, which is my next point of my hates towards these films are just the dialogue writing. And I also wrote Danny McBride, where you at? Because obviously, let's bring this back to like 2016 when we heard Danny McBride was going to be writing or being a part of these films. I remember, first of all, being terrified. Like, what is this dude who is in like all these comedy movies taking over? What I knew him best from was This Is the End. And I was like, holy shit, this guy is taking helm on like my most cherished franchise. It's over.
Right.
But
it almost seemed like that was a joke in itself. Like, really?
Yeah, really? Definitely. Like, of all the guys that could have been chosen for this, I was expecting like a Ryan Murphy who's done like the American Horror Story, or you would know the name, the guy who did Haunting of Hill House and
I don't know.
House of Usher.
Yeah, I don't know his name, but yes, yeah, right.
Like, I was expecting some of those names to come out, but then Danny McBride was just wild for me. But in my head, I was like, okay, well, at least like the dialogue in these movies should feel very real. One thing about like that like Seth Rogen brand of movies is the comment or the dialogue usually feels unscripted, even if it was. I was looking forward to that part of it. I don't think it connected at all. I think there's no real strong movie as far as dialogue goes in these three films. Everything is either overacted and extremely dramatic, or it's like trying to be funny and it just isn't. To your point with like the peanut butter on my penis, or I think of Jamie Lee Curtis or Laurie Strode saying, "Show the world your tits," and it's like, where is this coming from? This doesn't feel natural. It doesn't match the characters we know. But there are also great comedy moments in those films, as far as like, I think Little John and Big John have a real dialogue that feels natural. They're kind of funny people without trying to be in your face funny. Obviously, you got Julian in H-18, who's probably the funniest character in all of the Halloween series. So there is a little bit in there. But yeah, I have a problem every time I watch these movies with both the lines and the delivery of the lines. Obviously, I think it hits its best stride in Halloween Ends, because there was so much there that they really had to sell. Whereas H-18 and Halloween Kills are movies that we're familiar with. We're expecting that kind of when we enter a Halloween film. So when they had to get creative is when they really shined. But yeah, I would say like one of my biggest problems with this franchise or this trilogy, and my number 2 hate for this is the dialogue.
Well, let's just keep this thing going, because my number two thing that I wrote that I hate about this trilogy also is some of the dialogue and some of the writing. And I agree with everything you said, and we don't have to rehash it, but that is exactly how I feel. That we knew much like what you said, where when we first heard that we were going to get this 2018, at least we were going to get a new Halloween film, and you saw that Danny McBride, who is he's done a lot of comedy, and that David Gordon Green, who's also done a lot of comedy, were going to be the guys at the helm of this thing. it made you very, very nervous, right? And I would say overall, yes, am I pleased with this trilogy? Sure. I would say if you had to put a gun to my head and say, do I love this trilogy? Do I hate it? Of course, I love it because it's more Michael Myers. But I do question why there was some of that comedic relief that, those two things specifically, what you just said, right? The peanut butter on my penis and show the world your tits thing. Nobody needs that in a Halloween film. Nobody needs that. But what Julian did felt very natural. Like when he engaged with and I'm blanking on her name now, but it's Virginia Gardner is the babysitter. What's her name in the movie in 2018?
I'm losing it too.
Whatever, doesn't matter. But when he's engaging with her back and forth, that to me felt very natural. That to me felt like a real, snarky kind of conversation. Obviously, with a kid who may be wise beyond his years and knows how to throw a jab, just very natural. Some of the other stuff terrible. Obviously, don't even get me started on the Evil Dies Tonight crap. Like that in itself ruined that movie for me. I sometimes wonder, like, if I could take that whole Evil Dies Tonight, if I could take all of that chanting, those lines out of that film, would I like it more? And the answer to that question is 100% yes, I would like that film more if none of that was involved. I don't mind the quote or the sentence, Evil Dies Tonight. Don't have a problem with that. I have a problem with how it was written. I have a problem with how it was delivered. And combine those two things, it's a 1-2 punch that just tears that movie down for me. So, yeah, dude, my point, I agree. I hate some of the writing in the David Gordon Green trilogy. Let's hear your number 3.
Yeah, absolutely. For me, number 3, I think, we preface this saying there is one film in particular that I think we have the most gripes with. I think maybe I overhate on Halloween Kills sometimes. Because if you took out the Evil Dies Tonight and you took out kind of the guy, the side story with the guy who's being chased from Smith's Grove.
Yeah.
Just a manhunt against Michael Myers. The premise is interesting and a good idea. But one thing that Halloween Kills did that Halloween Ends, I like to pretend did not expand on, but I think they were trying to, is the lore and mythos of Michael Myers. This is a problem I talk about often with this franchise and with this series, because the more, installments into this franchise we get, people want questions answered. The general populace, the general audience, not people like us that love this thing with our, all of our hearts. The people that are just turning on a horror movie, and they're going, okay, they're bringing Michael back after 40 years. Why?
Right.
The problem is the more you put out into the universe and the further you have to explain Michael Myers, the less it connects with me as a guy who loves the idea of Halloween and Michael Myers in 1978, where he is just a kid who snapped. Mm-hmm. Halloween Kills comes in with some pretty bold accusations, and they are just dialogue between characters. It's not like these characters are narrators saying that Michael is transcending as he kills. But the movie is also backing up that idea, by having the movie end with that long monologue by Laurie Strode, but B, with these godly shots of Michael Myers. I remember sitting in the movie theater during Halloween Kills at the very end, and as they did that like montage of where it's like pure black background, it looks like a Nike ad where he's like slashing these people, right. The chick with the toaster. I remember being like, oh, they're going a little too far here for me. Right. Like, it just felt there are some questions about Michael. I'm having trouble talking today. I don't know if you can tell.
Stroke-like symptoms.
I know. I smell burnt toast. But the more they went into that, the more I was out of it. And then obviously in Ends, you have the power transfer scene. And, I view it as two kind of outcasts finding the one similarity one could ever possibly have with Michael Myers. And like the only person in the world who could empathize with this dude, they've connected by some stroke of fate. But the book makes it pretty clear. And honestly, the viewing experience is pretty clear that there is some sort of supernatural metaphysical thing going on when they meet, and it changes Corey, which sucks because that removes some of the character development for Corey for me. But yeah, I will say this forever. I don't like the idea of a supernatural Michael Myers. We have Jason Voorhees. He is the zombie with some purpose that is known. And they're clear about it from the beginning that this kid should have died, and now he's alive and he's driven on killing. And there's no way to kill him. The issue that Halloween Kills and Halloween Ends kind of brings up is like, you really can't kill Michael Myers then. There's no winning, which on one hand is scary, but on the other hand, it makes this otherwise pretty believable story totally unbelievable. And yeah, it bugs me so much that Halloween 18 was clear that this is just a man. And then at the end of Halloween Ends, they're like, this is just a man. But everywhere in the middle, there's this like, he transcends, he's bigger, he's larger than life, he becomes more powerful, and he's a killing machine, and you can't kill evil. I don't know, man. It feels like on one hand, they don't have any idea of the story that they wanted to tell with Michael Myers. And on the other hand, it just goes too deep into what drives Michael Myers, what makes Michael Myers who he is.
Well, I agree. Much like you, I don't want supernatural Michael Myers, right? I mean, we dip our toe into that a little bit with like the Thorn trilogy. I don't need more of that. I want to also think of Michael as sort of just this man who snaps, and he's got this agenda. He's got this thing that he wants to do, whether that's the family angle, whether that's the I'm just obsessed with this girl angle, whatever it is. I don't want to be, I don't want the idea of this supernatural thing thrown in my face any more than it has to be. But you are 100% right that on the bookends of this trilogy, we have Michael Myers, the man. But in the middle, that is where we don't have black and white anymore. It gets very, very gray. The waters are muddied because we see things like Michael taking a freaking point blank shot at the end of that scene, right? That scene you were talking about where he's prior to that scene where he is doing the killing, where he is like getting attacked in the street, right? His mask comes off, and he puts his mask back on, I don't remember how it even goes, but that dude like unloads like 6 rounds into his chest. Boom, 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 boom. Right. And then he's getting stabbed and beat. And it's like, there is no way that a man would ever survive that. So you've now taken us and you've introduced, or you've put us back into this supernatural world. And then we immediately go to Halloween Ends, where you have this man who's not supernatural, who's clearly recovering from his injuries to the point that he is basically like a shell of what he once was. But then you go back to this whole weird transfer of energy or whatever the hell happens between him and Corey. And then when he starts stabbing, he like gains this power. I don't like that either. That didn't make my list, but I don't like that either. I don't like that killing sort of gives him power. Like I don't want that, because I think once again, that crosses us into that supernatural realm. I also agree with what you were saying about the end of the film. It looked like a Nike ad, the slow motion, the blood splatter, whatever. We knew we were going to get a lot of killing. It's in the title, right? Halloween Kills. We know we're going to get a lot of killing. I think they took it too far. I don't know what the death count is, or the kill count is for kills, but it has to be extremely high. They could have probably taken off at least for sure that those 9 or 10 people at the end of the film that he kills, and it would have been still somewhat believable. But when you get into that whole thing, it just, to me, became way over the top. The dude isn't going to take multiple rounds at a point blank range and get up from that. Like, it's just not going to happen. Even in 2018, Laurie shoots him and she hits him like in the shoulder, right? Or wherever she hits him. And then, well, there's that at the end too, right? He takes that round off the face, which doesn't make a whole lot of sense. The only thing I can hope for is it was some sort of low caliber, bullet that he was shot with, and somehow it just like grazed his face. I don't know, but likely that would have blown his fucking head off, right?
Right.
So at the end of the day, I agree. I don't like that. I don't like the way that whole thing got blown up. And it's just kind of adds the reasons why I'm not a fan of Halloween Kills. So yeah, great choice. And I agree wholeheartedly. Moving on to my third reason why I hate the David Gordon Green trilogy. And don't worry, we're going to get to our loves here in a second, but we're going to start off with some negative stuff. But I hated how Laurie Strode went from being on her deathbed and having open stomach surgery, basically, where you have to only assume she had vital organs that were penetrated by Michael Myers' knife. And then just within a few hours later, she's literally standing up. She's getting dressed. She's shoving needles into her ass. She's going out and getting ready to go, kick Michael's ass. That is so far-fetched, so unbelievable. And once again, I go to the writing, and I blame the writing for that, because they didn't need to do that. If Laurie Strode had stayed in bed that entire movie, if she had gotten rushed to the hospital, but she had become conscious, alert, whatever it might be, in her hospital bed, you got Hawkins laying next to her. They have that whole conversation back and forth where you're starting to kind of sense that there might be something going on here, that they like each other or whatever it might be that they were trying to go for in that scene. I could believe that. I could believe that she woke up, she's loopy from the surgery, she got out of surgery. I don't know what time this whole, what the timeline, as far as the actual time of the events of 2018. But in my mind, I look at 2018 sort of ending around maybe that 10 o'clock hour, something like that. Laurie's rushed to the hospital. She's in surgery by, 10:45, 10:30, whatever it is. And then Halloween Kills is happening. And she's getting up or she's waking up, sometime in the middle of the night, which still seems very fast, very advanced. You wouldn't think somebody would wake up after being, sedated and whatever, right? You'd think they'd be in some sort of a coma, at least a medically induced coma, whatever it is, post surgery. That to me was terribly played out the way that they did that. Let Laurie be, let her be in the hospital bed, let her be basically stuck there. And they kind of showed that at one point. She tries to get up and she's like, and she can't, and it's because you got fucking staples and stitches, whatever, all over in your stomach. You're not going to be able to move around. And then when she tells the nurse to leave, and then she gets up and then she takes that freaking needle and of whatever God's name that was and jams it in her ass. Stupid. It took the believability, that whole thing, right out the window. And it almost made Laurie Strode seem like she had some sort of, supernatural power to overcome her injuries. Freaking terrible. Hated it. That's why it made my list.
Yeah, I think that's totally fair. You ask any medical professional what's going on in a movie when people are taking out the IVs in their arms and taking out the sensors so quickly, even on Halloween night in Haddonfield, when things have gone awry, there would be nurses and doctors rushing to your door, wondering what's going on. It is a huge oversight. I didn't want Laurie in bed for the whole movie, but I think there was a different way to get around that. Just look at Halloween 2 or any movie that starts out in a hospital. I completely think that's a fair argument. And, I have some points about Laurie Strode coming up shortly.
Hit us with them.
For number 4, I'm going to say my number 4 hate for this trilogy is something I touched on earlier. It's the overarching direction of these films. One problem that I have when people go into a trilogy of movies, it was very clear, at least after the success of Halloween 18, that this was going to be a trilogy. Now, I got to imagine in the back of David Gordon Green's head, or at least sometime behind closed doors, there were execs saying to DGG and Danny McBride, if you do well with this, if this is commercially successful, if the fans love it, we're going to want to open this up to a 3-picture deal. So I'm just going to go off that preface in my head because I would imagine that happened. Or let's say they did the first one and that opened up the idea for 2 more. Either way, it does feel like 3 very disjointed movies. Obviously, the first 2 are kind of sister films. They fit in together in the same night. But it really doesn't seem like they had an idea of what was going to happen in Halloween Ends when they made Kills, and they didn't know what was going to happen in Ends when they made H18. Right. It just, there wasn't anything where things connected to the first part of that trilogy to make it a whole trilogy. I don't have a whole lot more to say on that. It's just, that is something that bugs me. It's a problem I have with more than just a Halloween franchise. When people, directors, anybody pulling the strings at a company that produces films have the idea that, hey, this either we're selling you a trilogy off the bat, or this could potentially be a trilogy. Let's try to have some overarching theme that is started in the first one and resolved in the third one. It's just, it's a bother for me.
Well, like we've mentioned on the show before, and we are Halloween Kills, the podcast of Corey Cunningham, or not Halloween Kills, Halloween Ends, Halloween Lives, whatever the fuck we are. We're the podcast of Corey Cunningham, and we've mentioned this before that, why was Corey not introduced earlier in the franchise? If they knew that this was the direction they were going to kind of head, then they should have introduced Corey earlier. So I think, to your point, I think that just adds a little bit more clarity to the situation, that when they wrote 2018, they might not have really known what Kills was going to look like. And when they wrote Kills, they really didn't have a good idea of what Ends was going to look like. They may have had sort of this, hey, we want to have somebody, Michael kind of take a back seat. We want to have introduce this new character, whatever that is. But it was not very well thought out. So, yeah, dude, I agree. The arch of the 3 is just not great. And if you didn't know better, you would almost think like 2 new writers came in to write Kills, and 2 different writers came in to write Ends, and they themselves tried to just connect the dots. And it's almost, I look at almost like the Thorn trilogy, the Cult of Thorn trilogy, like that's sort of the same thing. I mean, like, why do some things make sense and other things don't? And I think that's a little bit what we have going on here with the DGG trilogy, because it's like you have different writers with 4, 5, and 6, and they were trying to connect the dots with some of the things and tried to pull things together. But I think it's very similar with what we have with the others. So yeah, dude, very very good point. I will go ahead and follow up my number 4 with, I'm just going to say this. Why are there so many people in this trilogy with East Coast accents? Because I hate that. Why are there so many people in this trilogy with East Coast accents? It makes no sense. Somebody explain this to me. So I wrote down a couple that I could think of, at least. Corey's mom and dad in Ends are like freaking straight out of New Jersey, right? Gloria's husband in Halloween Kills is once again, straight out of New York City. He's like right out of Brooklyn. And then you've got the main, like, I'll call him the main asshole of the band group, the marching band group. He also has an East Coast accent. It's like, what is going on here? Why are there so many people with East Coast accents? It doesn't make any sense. Drives me nuts, and I absolutely hate that. Maybe I hate it more because I'm a guy from the Midwest. Because if that was anywhere else, and we didn't have this sort of connection to the Midwest ourselves, maybe I wouldn't care so much, because I just know, like, yeah, every once in a while you hear somebody with an East Coast accent, and like, oh, you must have moved here. Dude, it's freaking, there's way too many people in this franchise. Goes back to the casting. Why are they casting so many people with these, not just like East Coast accents where they just slip a little bit? Mm-hmm. It's like heavy East Coast accents. It makes zero freaking sense. And I hate it.
They're not coming out here with a Ben Affleck or whatever, or a Tom Brady sounding guy. They're coming out with, like, Tony Soprano sounding people where it's like extremely Italian in the way that they talk. I'm glad you brought up the band guy, because he's always like, what did you do to my car? Like, I'm gonna cut him. I'm gonna get you. Like, I don't know. It's just too much. It's a little close to Tony Loomis for me. All three of those. And
Tony Soprano. Oh, Tony Loomis. Yeah.
Tony Loomis.
Tony Loomis. Yeah, Tony Loomis.
But yeah, definitely like oh my God, what's his name? The Scarecrow in episode 3. It ends.
The Scarecrow, Corey.
Oh my God, dude.
Jeez, you are stroking out.
I know, dude. I'm losing it.
On with you?
Corey's dad or his like father figure in that movie is just like a characterization. And I don't know if Hollywood just thinks that's what people in Chicago sound like or in Illinois sound like. Went to school with a lot of people from Illinois. It's just Midwestern, but maybe just a little more aggressive. I'm not sure. I've never heard anybody that sounds quite like that that I met from Chicago or Illinois.
Right. I agree. I don't know. That just really bothered me. And I know that's getting a little nitpicky for me, because a lot of people probably watch that, especially if you're from the East Coast at all. You probably watch it, or maybe from like the South or whatever it is, where you're not even used to like a Midwestern accent. You might watch it and just kind of breeze over it. Unless you moved here from New York or the East Coast, whatever, you don't see it a whole lot, obviously. Not saying it doesn't happen, because it certainly does. There's plenty of people who live around here that are not from the Midwest, but it just seems a little overpowering in this trilogy. So I hate it. Yeah.
And just one final point, in some of the original movies, there's like some Southern accents going on. And I think that's way more believable to see coming up, to the Midwest than these East Coast accents. But still, you don't see a lot of either. My final hate that I have for this trilogy would be Laurie freaking Strode. And we've talked about her. We've talked plenty about Rambo Laurie. I have a huge problem with Rambo Laurie. That whole characterization was done so much better in Halloween H2O. Would have much rather seen some of the tropes get redone in this movie rather than seeing like this beloved character, which we're supposed to believe there's no characterization between Halloween 1978 in this film. So we're supposed to think if for the last 40 years, she's just been an alcoholic mess. Can't seem to hold a family together. Kind of selfish, honestly. Like when she shows up to the National Honor Society dinner and she's like pounding drinks, and like she's even like Allison's trying to tell her how it went. And she's like, yeah, okay. Like you're not the loving, caring Laurie Strode that we know from Halloween 1978. I then look at Halloween Kills and Halloween Ends. We just talked about where her character goes wrong in Kills. In Ends, it's starting to get better, but it's just like, why didn't we start out with this kind of level of like she doesn't want Laurie to go out with a boy. Like, why couldn't we have just seen that in Halloween 18 at the beginning? Obviously there's reasons she doesn't want her to go out with him, but like that kind of thing, I would much rather have than like the overacted, overwritten idea of like she is over the top, just drunk and a mess. And they cut out a scene where she was contemplating like ending it all in front of Michael's bus. And I mean, they still show her holding a gun, but I know it was cut from the film, her actually lifting that up. I think just something that subtle. I mean, that's not a subtle idea, but if you would put that in there with a little bit more normal Laurie Strode, I would have been like, okay, clearly there's some problems here. You don't need to beat me over the head with it. I know these movies. I know people think horror movie fans are dumb and just want blood and guts and gore. Just give me some subtle characterization, for God's sake. And
grandmother, did you invite grandmother to dinner? Did you invite grandmother? Like it's fucking Oregon Trail 1987.
Yeah, Laurie's got diphtheria.
No, I hated that.
It's just Laurie Strode is kind of the culmination, and I think it's because it's a character that we were all sold. Like, this is the reason for this trilogy. I just wish they would have done her a little more justice.
I agree. I totally agree. I mean, that was my hot take when we did our hot takes episode, whatever, 5 or 6 weeks ago, was like Laurie Strode did terrible things for the trilogy. I agree. I hate to, you hate to take away from the films by taking Laurie Strode away, because it would have obviously changed the entire outcome of the entire franchise. But yeah, dude, it sucks. I'm going to sort of piggyback on that a little bit, but change characters. That I hated that Lindsay Wallace seemed to be forgotten about in Halloween Ends, and she should have been a bigger part of the story. So, number one, I wish they would have introduced her. This kind of goes like into the thing that we talked about, like the overarching storyline. Lindsay, maybe Tommy, but for sure Lindsay, since she was clearly going to survive, or she did survive kills. Lindsay should have been introduced in 2018. Could have been something very simple. Laurie's in the supermarket. She runs into Lindsay. Oh my God, haven't seen you in forever. How are you? She realizes Laurie's pretty jacked up in the head. Not the same girl. Whatever it is, Lindsay seems like she's doing well. Whatever. You have this very small interaction, this engagement, because it plants this seed in your head as the viewer that, okay, there's something here. We're going to get more of this. We know this is coming. And then we see her in kills. She gets brought into this giant mess that we have, that we get introduced to right away, obviously, with this show that's going on, this whatever the hell is happening, right? This talent show. And it's such a letdown what they do with her character. And I've talked about this in the past, but I hate this. I absolutely hate it, because they could have done so much more with that character of Lindsay Wallace and Tommy. But they could have done so much more with that character, having Tommy Doyle and Lindsay Wallace, who were really key parts and key figures in the original 1978. They could have done more there, and it's just so disappointing that they didn't. And I hate that. I hate that for Kyle Richards. I hate that for the franchise. I hate that for the trilogy. I hate that for the fans, because there was so much more that they could have done with her character to bring that out more and to reintroduce us to what we saw in 1978, that we had this little girl who was, 10 years old, 11 years old. I don't even know how old she's supposed to be in 78. But now she's this grown woman. She's moved on with her life. She finds out that she runs into Laurie. She hasn't seen her in forever. Oh my God, she's in rough shape. Hey, we should get coffee sometime. Whatever, right? They could have done so much more with it. And I hate that they didn't. It sucks.
Yeah, what's really too bad with Lindsay is, she had the most potential out of the characters that they brought back outside of like Laurie Strode. Because you look at it like a character like Marion Chambers, they brought her back and killed her off within an hour in this franchise. It's like, why are we even doing this with these like franchise beloved characters? I loved Marion Chambers in Halloween H2O especially, but yeah, she's got this history. She's got 3 films before Halloween Kills that she was in that fans have grown to really like, the actress who plays that character and just the idea of Marion Chambers. But then Lindsay, yeah, you're so right. You clearly we're keeping her alive, but it's like, what for? She's a tarot card reader, I guess, in the third one. She works at a bar.
Stupid.
It's like they had other characters, but they were just like, oh, we can make Lindsay do that. And now she's part of the movie. Totally agree with you. It is a disservice to those characters. But now that we got all of that out of our system,
tough. I hate talking shit about this franchise. I really do.
We can finally end doing our favorite thing we like to do, which is just loving this franchise.
Love it.
I started off with the hatred. Blaine, would you start us off with the love?
I absolutely would. I'm glad to get all that shit off my chest about the hatred that I have for this thing, because I really do love it. I love it. These are all going to be pretty easy for me. Things that we've really talked about, probably on multiple different episodes. So they're going to go pretty quick, but I will say that the first thing that I absolutely love about the David Gordon Green trilogy are the Halloween seasonal vibes that we get throughout the trilogy. Obviously, 2018 is heavy on this. That whole scene where Allison and Vicky are walking to school with the dumbass boyfriend, and he's blowing up the jack-o'-lanterns, and they're having that whole conversation in 2018. That, to me, it felt like Halloween. They did a great job of making that seem and feel like this is October. You lose it, obviously, a little bit more and more as we go on, simply because the story takes place, at least in Kills, takes place in a hospital, and then ends is sort of just all over the board. There's really not a whole lot of like trick-or-treating that you see besides maybe the first scene of the film. You don't get a whole lot of trick-or-treating that's going on in Ends. But dude, in 2018, they knocked it out of the park, and I love the fact that it feels like Halloween in the David Gordon Green trilogy.
Yeah, man, let's just keep this train rolling, because my number one love that I've written down for this trilogy is the tone of this trilogy. And I'll go on top of the Halloween vibes, because like you said, those are fantastic. I think of that the rampage, the montage in Halloween 2018, and it takes me to the peak of Halloween vibes. I absolutely love it. But on top of that, I think we've got 13 films here. We've seen when the tone of these films can be good. We've seen when it can be bad. And I think that, maybe sometimes to its own discredit, like in Halloween Kills, it takes itself very seriously. And that's what I wanted. I didn't want a Halloween Resurrection or a Halloween H2O where, they kind of poke fun at themselves a little bit. Halloween 6, you got these cops with the squeaky shoes, or is that Halloween 5? Whatever.
That's Halloween 5, yeah.
Yeah, Halloween 5. There's just, it's not, it is aware of how important it is to horror in general and the fans. And yeah, completely agree with you, man. Tone all the way.
Yep. I feel like when you are, if you're writing one of these films, if you are writing a screenplay for a Halloween film, you have to set the tone. You have to make it seem like it's October, the end of October. You have to make it seem like it's the Midwest in October. We've seen movies, including the original, that were filmed outside of the Midwest, and some do a really good job of making it seem like Halloween, and some don't. They did a great job. They filmed it, I believe, in North Carolina, or maybe North Carolina, I think it was.
Yep.
And they killed it. They killed it. So yeah, you and I are on the exact same page with that. The vibes, the feels, we love it. You can't ask for any more in a Halloween film like this. All right, my next love, the things that I shit on some of the actors that were in these, in this trilogy. But for the most part, I absolutely love the casting of this trilogy. And I'm going to name a few of the people that I thought were cast unbelievably well, that I don't feel like if you were to recast this film, it wouldn't be the same, or these films, I should say. If you were to recast these films and not use some of these actors, it would not have the impact that it does, because I think they did a really good job overall with casting. Andy Matichek, or Matichek, I don't know how you say it, who plays Allison. She is incredible. I loved sort of watching her journey as the films progress. I thought it was really cool. It was almost like she was growing up on the screen in front of you. It felt like she was a high school kid in 2018. And by the time we got to Ends, it's like, okay, she's a young woman, right? I mean, she grew up sort of in front of us. Rowan Campbell, who played Corey, obviously. Judy Greer, I thought did a really good job. At first, I wasn't sold on her being Laurie Strode's daughter, but then by the end of, or seeing by the end of Kills, I was okay with it. I was like, okay, she did a really, really good job. I'm going to butcher his name here probably, but Jabril Nantambu? Jabril Nantambu? However you say it. I'm talking about Julian. I don't Jabril, Jibral, Nantambu. Maybe that's how you say it. Nantambu.
I'm sure that's exactly how you say it.
Jabril Nantambu is fantastic. You can't replace that kid. He did such a good job. Virginia Gardner, she played Vicky. I loved the character of Vicky. Fantastic. Will Patton. Dude, Will Patton, hit a freaking grand slam with the character of Hawkins. I thought he did so good with that. And then, of course, friend of the show, Michelle Dawson, loved her character of Nurse Deb. There's more, but those were just some of my absolute favorites from the trilogy. And I, for the most part, love the casting of this trilogy.
Totally. It was pretty incredible that these actors, a lot of them I had never heard of before these films, became some of my favorite characters. And I think, we'll give credit where credit's due. There is something to be said about modern day writing and modern day acting, making it feel like it's real. Some of the dialogue in Age 78, some of the dialogue in a lot of the movies, honestly, going up until like Rob Zombie's, where we went way too grounded. It just felt a little bit like we're watching actors reading dialogue. These movies, they really did create characters that felt real. And so I completely agree with you. My number 2 love is the design of these films. As a guy who's super into art and super into the making of masks and things like this, the design on Michael's look and a lot of the characters, a lot of like the design as far as like think of Corey's mask, a lot of what they did, and it goes to even the tone, like we talked about, choosing specific Halloween decorations. A lot of the design and the costume work. Obviously, got to shout out Christopher Nelson, who kicked ass on every single one of these movies. Did it absolute justice. Got to talk to him at age 45. Didn't ask for an autograph. Didn't ask for anything from him. I just said, is it cool if I just talk to you for 5 minutes? And he was nice enough to just chat with me man to man for 5 minutes. And he absolutely killed it. I love the way Michael looks. And I think the idea of having like a transition of masks.
Yes.
We obviously are supposed to believe that this is the William Shatner mask, the flashback mask. It's got its tweaks, it's got its differences, but it's still close enough. But the fact that we can look at the mask and see how it progresses and deteriorates, even becoming moldy and nasty and like glued to his face at the end, it really is awesome. And I think that's one of the things that Rob Zombie did really well with his films, was having that progression.
Right.
I hope that's the industry standard for Halloween films moving forward. Got to give it to the design team.
Yeah, the thing is, like, you can identify, like any Halloween film, if you flash a mask up on the screen, you're like, oh, that's H4, or boom, oh, that's H2O, or boom, that's Rob Zombie, right? I mean, you can identify it so quickly. You can do that same thing with this trilogy where it's like, okay, that's 2018, that's Kills, that's Ends. It all makes sense. I agree. I love that progression and the transition of the masks. I'm a huge fan of the way that the mask looked in Ends with like the mold and shit growing on. I mean, I got it, right here. I kind of bookended my background here because I love that look. Totally agree, dude. Totally agree. Kind of talking about casting. I forgot, or I shouldn't say forgot, but I left off one very, very important person off of my casting. And that is, I love the fact that James Jude Courtney is Michael Myers in this trilogy, dude. He is, I think arguably, he is a top 3, if not top 2 favorite Michael Myers of almost every single fan of this entire franchise, right? You always hear Nick Castle, and I think you will always hear James Jude Courtney. I'm a fan of George P. Wilbur, especially in Part 6. I've said that before, but I think James Jude Courtney has, put into concrete his status within this trilogy, that he is one of, if not the greatest Michael Myers that we've ever seen. And I think the reason why, the OG is the OG. Nick Castle is the OG. He set the standard for who Michael is, how he walks, how he moves. So without him, we would have nothing, right? He is the example. He is the template of Michael Myers. But I think for an aging Michael Myers, for a 60-year-old Michael Myers, what would that same character be today? James Jude Courtney freaking swung at a fastball and hit that mother effer to straight deep center field and over the wall, because he did such a good job. And I love the fact that James Jude Courtney is Michael Myers in this franchise.
Gotta completely agree with you, man. I think, we got to hear a little bit about it at age 45 as he spoke to everybody about his direction in becoming the Shape. Dude is very spiritual, very just like in tune with the world around him. He was aware of what Michael Myers needs to be in these films. And, he did, like you said, he knocked it out of the park. Definitely will always be talked about in discussion for the greatest Michael Myers. And if he's not, then something amazing is coming down the line, because he has left a performance that I think is going to be untouched for a really long time.
It's going to be hard. It's whoever comes in and plays the next Michael Myers, which I'm available if anybody Trancus is wondering. It is going to be incredibly tough for that person to fill those shoes, because he did such a fantastic job. That's totally agree.
Definitely. Yeah.
What's your next one?
My next one, number 3, is going to be a pretty short one for me, but I think these films have the greatest cinematography in definitely the Michael Myers Halloween universe.
Yes.
But potentially some of the best in horror in general. I think especially Halloween Ends is a gorgeous looking movie. These films are just pretty to look at, and you don't really get that in the genre of horror. Whatever cameras they were using, whatever lenses they were using, give it up to David Gordon Green for getting the shots, getting the ideas in there, because it is a very gorgeous looking set of films. And I appreciate that. It's another thing that kind of goes into the tone of the film, the design of the film. It all kind of goes into the cinematography. Knocked it out of the park as well.
I don't remember who the director of photography was on these films, but yes, I agree. Like the lighting, the camera angles, the camera work. I mean, so much of it is 100% the best of the franchise. And I agree with you. I would also say, as far as the cinematography goes, it is some of the best work that I've seen in a horror movie of recent years, at least. I mean, there's no question they found the right person to do those shots and to get that lighting, which you think about is so important for these films. I mean, you look at like what Dean Cundey did in 78. That was so important, the way he lit or backlit or, moved things around. And like the perfect scene that the scene that I always think about, especially with the original, is after Laurie has stabbed Michael with the clothes hanger, in the closet, and he falls down, and then she's sitting out in the hallway, and he sits up, and then she stands up, and you just see Michael's face or his mask just come into view with that lighting. Like, that was incredible. That what Dean Cundey did there was incredible for 1978. And then whoever the DP was on this trilogy, they did a freaking fantastic job. Couldn't agree with you more. And I'm going to sort of once again piggyback off of this. It's changing it slightly, but this is going to be one that is very easy for me to say. There's not going to be a ton to talk about with it. I would consider it to be even a little bit of a hot take. No, it wouldn't be a hot take. I'm not going to say it's a hot take because I think a lot of people will agree with me on this, I guess. But the score, the soundtracks for these 3 films are the best of the entire franchise. And I love the music from start to finish. Even just as like you roll into, I'll put myself back in 2021, sitting in the movie theater right next to you, and the Miramax logo comes up on the big screen and the movie's starting, and you just are getting those first tones of that music, and it damn near gives me goosebumps thinking about it, because it was like, and this was obviously for Kills, right? This was for Halloween Kills. Even though 2018 did the exact same thing, but 2018 kind of was like a cold open, like it was just like that hard. I think you get the buzzer of the, like, because they're at the asylum. I think you get like that, like the hard buzzer right away. But the way that Halloween Kills opens, where the music starts up and you get the spinning like logo. I think it's Miramax, whatever, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
But like you get that intro before the movie actually starts. I remember sitting next to you and being like, holy shit, this is a moment in my life. Maybe I have terrible moments in my life that this is like a highlight, but this is going to be one that I remember for the rest of my life because I was so excited in that moment to be getting that film. And a lot of that had to do with the music. And all the way across the board, the trilogy has the best music of the entire franchise. Put a period, exclamation point on that. I totally believe that.
Well, let's just keep the love coming on that because
Jesus.
my
it's like we're brothers. It's like we're brothers.
My next one, dude, is also the score. I think it's responsible for giving me maybe my favorite piece of music in all of these films. Is the Shea Ponce Allison. Not as iconic as the original theme or the shape stocks, which is I believe the dun dun dun.
Right.
But that theme, when it came on, I've talked about it plenty of times on the podcast. I was a little so-so on the movie until that point when that theme kicked on and the movie picked up in pace and got darker. It was like, oh, we're in good hands. This is all going to be okay because this is the coolest freaking song I've ever heard in a Halloween movie. And you know, obviously that vibe is continued. They did a great job. Obviously, it's John Carpenter. It's not even a disrespect to say that this is maybe better than the original because it's by the guy who did the original. He just has more tools in his tool belt now.
Right.
Exactly. My only problem with the trilogy score-wise is Laurie's theme. Wish we could have gotten a little less dramatic version.
Yes.
Because Laurie's theme is my favorite from the original. But yeah, man, the score, incredible.
And I also agree. I think I wish we would have gotten a more original version of Laurie's theme, at least in 2018.
Yeah.
You know, that would have been cool. But all right. This is gonna be my last thing. This is my last pick of what I love about the Halloween trilogy. And here's what I'll say is I love that they brought the story back to the Myers house in Halloween Kills. And it was a pure genius move to bring in characters like Big John and Little John to tell the story of the 1963 murder of Judith Myers and to get that sort of, showing us what the house looks like today, that the house became a character. I love this so much. Thought it was genius. And I think where it became a 1-2 punch is you got the Myers house to open Halloween Kills, the original Myers house where it was run down and it looked like shit. This is taking us back to 1978. And then now you fast forward to present day 2021. And well, I guess this would be 2018 still, the night of Halloween 2018 when all of this is taking place. But you have everything that I want when I'm talking about the Myers house. You have it that it's brought back to life, that these guys have restored it, and it's the Myers house. And Michael Myers knows it as his house. He knows it as his home. And that scene when Little John, because Little John's the big one and Big John's the little one, right? I think that's how it works.
Oh, it might be.
I don't know. Whatever. When Stuart from Mad TV goes up to Judith Myers' bedroom and he sees Michael standing there looking out the window, and he's like, "Michael, you came home," or "Michael, you came back." Bro, freaking genius! I loved it. Thank you to David Gordon Green and Danny McBride for writing that whole part of that film, because to me, if you took out the flashback scene at the beginning and you took out the Big John Little John storyline with the house, throw that movie in the trash. I don't even want to watch it, because those two things in my mind saved that film for me from being absolutely bottom of the barrel. I cannot stand this film. And yeah, I love the fact that they brought back the Myers house in Halloween Kills.
It is one of the coolest things ever. And I obviously love the idea of Michael Myers. You know, not only is he a slasher that did kill people in 1978, at this point, that was the only people outside of Judith that Big John and Little John thought he killed. So I like the idea of Michael being that local legend, and Judith Myers being a ghost. Like that little extra detail, the lore in Haddonfield. Obviously, we know something a lot more physical and sinister is happening outside of, I think they say like Judith, you can still hear her wailing from her window or whatever. But so cool. And I do want to talk about that flashback scene because we are brothers, brother.
We are brothers, brother.
We are brothers, brother. And for me, I don't really know how to put this into a number 5 for me, but the devil in the details, the fan service, the general love for the movies that we love that was put into this trilogy is incredible. Let's talk about the flashback scene. I've never seen a movie that's able to recreate the look of a late 70s movie the way that does. It doesn't feel like something that was shot in 2020. It feels like something that was shot in 1978. It is really just so true to the vibe. They got the jackets right. They got the Myers house right. They got everything right. They even got Loomis right. The dude's been dead for 20 years. It's incredible what they did with that scene. And that fan service, that love, that attention to detail lives throughout all 3 of these movies. You got Mr. Elrod living out there. You got Don't Fear the Reaper playing at the end. It is
good.
A labor of love that went into these 3 movies. And, hopefully we get that again someday. Hopefully the people that are taking over care and love this series as much as David Gordon Green and Danny McBride did. Because those little nods to the fans, the little things, they didn't build a movie around nostalgia, but they gave the people who are true, dedicated, diehard fans like us things to point out and be happy about. And, like I said, I don't know if we'll ever see that level of attention to detail fan service ever again. It's incredible.
Like you said, it was clear that the filmmakers of this franchise were fans of this franchise, and I think that's really important. I don't think whatever direction this thing goes, they can't just give somebody who really is not well versed in this franchise the keys to the Lamborghini. We have to have somebody who knows how to drive a Lamborghini to drive this Lamborghini, because we see what happens when you give somebody the keys, i.e. Halloween 5, who has no idea what this franchise and what this series is about. And then you see somebody who you give the keys to, such as David Gordon Green, who is clearly a fan of this franchise, and you see what happens. The end results are vastly different. And it's such a great point that there was blood, sweat, and tears, but a hell of a lot of love that was put into this, this trilogy, based on the nods, the Easter eggs that they gave to fans throughout this, and to probably 90+% of the viewers of all of these movies, it meant nothing. They didn't know that Don't Fear the Reaper was also in 1978. They didn't know these little things that were being tossed in here and there. But to us, to his like hardcore fans that the hardcore fans that we are, and the hardcore fans that listen to this podcast, that shit meant a lot. And for that, I'm going to be forever grateful that we do have this trilogy, because who knows if we'll ever get that sort of nod to, the original, or at least the original couple, in any way ever again. So, dude, I could not agree more with what you just said.
Yeah, we really are. This is one of the most divisive trilogies in horror. This has been a wild ride the last few years. So it is nice to take the rose tinted glasses off, talk about some of the things we didn't like, but then ultimately appreciate what we have, because it might not be the same moving forward. Who knows what is in store as far as the Halloween franchise goes. But right. There's only one thing you can count on, Blaine. What is that?
What is what?
What you can count on. God damn it.
Halloween lives. Sun coming up tomorrow.
Halloween lives.
Halloween lives. That's true. Halloween lives. It does live. Halloween will continue to live. especially here. Well, let's not go too fast, because next week's episode, our live episode, Live 55, we're going to be taking into our body, digesting some of the hottest, spiciest sauces that you can possibly put on a drumstick or a piece of meat. So we hope that Halloween Lives will continue after next week's episode. But that's why you guys need to tune in, because it could be the end of us. We could burn holes in our esophagus, in our stomach lining, whatever it is, and that could really be it. That could be the end. So we hope that you guys will join us next week for Live 55 and watch us as we take on your questions, and our guest host asks us questions as we try to consume and eat very, 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 very spicy chicken wings. It should be fun. It'll be, it'll be fun. We're just gonna leave it at that. It's gonna be a good time. We'll see how it goes. It's different than what we've done in the past for our live shows. But if you guys do have questions for us, whatever they are, nothing is off the table. We'll answer anything. We are open books. Drop us comments below. Send us DMs on Instagram at halloween.lives.podcast. Let us know what you think about the podcast if you haven't done so already. And obviously hit that subscribe button if you're just listening or watching this for the first time. We are excited to see you guys next Friday night. It's the 2nd of February. If you don't have that marked down in your calendar yet, do it. 7 p.m. Central Standard Time. Go watch YouTube and watch us consume these very spicy wings for Live 55. This is episode 54, our love-hate relationship for the David Gordon Green trilogy. I'm Blaine Duncan. That is my brother Austin, and we will see you guys live next week for Halloween Lives Live 55. We'll see you then.
Bring your goddamn milk.